It doesn't matter. He tapes over my voice with what he wants anyhow.
That's true.
I think, doesn't that? I identified myself on the first film.
No over me here.
It's the reverse speech part of it that really is. Okay, guys.
Ready to go? And good day, I'm Ted Gunderson. I have a radio talk show out of the Amerinet Network, Tampa, Florida, 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday. And last summer, the summer of 1997, I invited Chip Tatum to come on my show for a 2-hour interview. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that interview ended up 26 hours. And I had him back recently for another interview, another 20-some hour plus interview. This man is full of all kinds of information. And before I leave you and introduce you to Chip, let me just mention that my radio show can be heard on Galaxy One Transponder 17, 5.58 frequency wideband audio satellite. So today I have with me Chip Tatum. This man is unbelievable. 25 years, CIA Black Ops operator. Chip, welcome to a video which you and I are going to distribute. Tell the world about what went on behind the scenes in your Black Op operation.
Thanks, Ted. Great to be here. Great to be here.
Great to be here.
Great to be here.
Chip never could speak English too well. No, this guy's very intelligent and a good man, great American. I'm very proud to be a part of his, at least spreading the information out to help Chip any way that I can. And we have some books we're going to talk about later on, the Tatum Chronicles, and Nixon's Darkest Secret, I think is, yes, Nixon's Darkest Secret, which we will discuss. But before we go into the books, Chip, how did you become involved in working for the CIA? And I guess we have to go back to your Army training and Special Forces and so forth, right?
Sure. I flunked a chemistry exam in the early 70s and ended up being drafted, receiving my draft notice. In lieu of going into the Army or another service, I didn't really want to go to Vietnam. So I joined the Air Force. I was promised that I could be an air traffic controller under their Project Guarantee. They did make me an air traffic controller, but they made me a little bit different type of air traffic controller. They sent me to Army jump school and Special Forces training, and I became a combat controller. During my first tour in Vietnam, I was on a classified mission. Having completed the mission, we were captured. I spent time in captivity, and when I came out of captivity, we were debriefed by the CIA station chief out of Saigon, Bill Colby. From that time, in 1971 until 1992, I was one of the boys.
Okay, now Chip, you joined the Air Force so you could be a traffic controller, right? Air traffic controller. And you were told that you wouldn't have to worry about being in the front lines, right?
That's right. Even if I did go to Vietnam, I would be in an air-conditioned control tower hundreds of miles from the enemy.
And so what other jokes do you have for us today? Huh?
I'd still like to find that tech sergeant recruiter.
He probably went underground. If he knew as much about you as I do, he probably is disappeared maybe even, huh? Okay, Chip, so you're over, you had like over 100 jumps behind the enemy lines?
Right.
And this was before you became involved in CIA operations or before?
During.
During. So after your capture, you were grabbed by the CIA and they liked, you know, what you'd done, of course. Now, what why were you captured and what led up to that? Was this Operation Red Rock?
This was Operation Red Rock.
Okay, then let's go back before that.
Okay.
And tell us about Operation Red Rock. When did you first have an inkling that you'd be involved in this operation? Well, excuse me, just a minute. Operation Red Rock is a code word, right?
That's a code name for the particular mission that we were on.
And they always have code names, right?
Or numbers. Sometimes they have numbers.
Right. Okay. So when did you first have an inkling that you were going to be involved in this operation?
I had just jumped in, parachuted into NKP Thailand, the base that I was TDY to, and when I landed on the pad, at the medevac pad at the hospital, a chopper was inbound. and when the chopper landed, a Special Forces captain and some other people got off. One of the patients, one of his men, was on a stretcher. The captain went in, and the colonel who ran the base was there to meet me. It was an award ceremony. When they were going in, he said something to the colonel, and they all turned around and looked at me, and I knew I was in trouble then.
And what happened after that?
The following morning at 3 a.m. I was called into the colonel's office. And let me tell you, folks, I was a little airman, you know, just made buck sergeant, and I rarely had contact with a colonel in my life. One time, and that's for disciplinary purposes, in Oklahoma City.
And how old were you then?
19 years old.
Just a kid?
Just a kid. So when they told me I was to report to the colonel, I knew I was dead. I'd done something wrong.
Well, not yet.
I'd done something wrong, and I was fixing to get it.
But Chip, had you had Special Forces training at that point?
Yeah. I had spent almost a year in Special Forces training across the United States. Sea Survival School, POW, jungle training, the works.
And what did the colonel say to you when you walked into his office?
He told me that I was there to join a mission, a team, a joint task force that's been put together for a classified mission, and he gave me the opportunity to talk and let him know how I felt about it. And he said, "How do you feel about this, Sergeant Tatum?" I said, "Well, you know, sir, I'm new in country. I really don't, other than schooling, don't have the experience of someone you need for this. I think you ought to get someone else." He said, "I didn't ask you what you think. I just gave you the opportunity to accept it before I told you you're going anyhow."
Okay, so you volunteered, in other words.
He volunteered me.
Yeah, right, okay. And what happened next? Did you go into training with these people then? With the other crew members?
Went and packed up my gear, was on the chopper, out of there within an hour.
And where did you fly to, and when did you arrive there?
We flew about 20 kilometers outside of NKP to outside of a small village where we'd set up a training camp for Team Red Rock. The person that I was replacing was their commo man. He had, on a jump, had broken his leg. And I was jump qualified, I was Special Forces qualified, so I was his replacement.
And this was in Vietnam at the time?
It was Thailand.
In Thailand, okay. And tell us about your training.
It was a short 2-week training, really familiarity with one another, because we actually didn't get the mission parameters in until 3 days prior to the operation. We were primarily set in place and worked in the community, seeking out Viet Cong along the border of Laos, so that we could get some tactical training. We also were working and trying to develop tandem jump techniques, because part of the mission, and we didn't understand why we had to learn tandem jumping. That's parachuting with 2 people until the actual mission brief. But we were trying to work out tandem jump techniques, and we did it.
And how many people were in training with you at that point?
All 13, just the 13 team members. Then we brought in, for each team member, there was a North Vietnamese sapper that was brought in to train with us. They were our prisoners, prisoner of wars that we had captured in battle.
And these were the ones that were going to jump with you?
These were the ones that we weren't sure why we were jumping with them and working with them. All we knew is that these were the men that we were going to be doing something with at that point.
Did you know any of these other crew members before this?
No, like I say, I was the only Air Force member of the Air Force, and I'd just been in the Air Force for a year, so no one.
And did they know each other?
No. And normally that's done for compartmentalization, especially when you're talking about a highly classified mission. The worst thing you can have is a group of good old boys, and there's a reason for that, you know. In special operations, you can't have the influence of a friendship. It can clutter your mind and keep you from doing the mechanical operation that you were trained to do.
Because conceivably you could be asked to kill one of your fellow associates or fellow soldiers too, right?
They may
under
come
certain
to you,
circumstances.
They may come to you and tell you that he's a spy in the group and he needs to be taken out, and if you're his friend, you're going to be probably more apt not to do it than if you just didn't know him.
And did you know the last names of these individuals?
No. We all had code names. Mine, although they called me Bulldog in country, the actual code name I was given while I was there was Highway.
Why? Any particular reason for highway?
Our captain, team commander, would always explain to us, it's my way or the highway, and he'd tell the team that. Well, I was willing to take the highway. I wanted to leave, especially after I saw the kind of things they did. Those guys were crazy.
For example?
So I took the highway. Well, at one point they were saying how high the helicopter could go and jump without a parachute without getting hurt, you know. Just for fun. I mean, this was an in-country activity, and they had a contest every year where they would take and they just jump out of the helicopter as it was exiting the AO.
Well, there were a few guys broke their legs on that one, weren't there?
You bet. That's how Reddy, the guy I replaced, broke his leg.
How high would they go, by the way?
Well, I went high, and I was dizzy for about 2 hours.
How high were you when you jumped?
I think it was about 35 or 40 feet.
Oh, you had to know how to roll then, didn't you?
Oh, roll. I didn't even know I thought I was stepping out of the aircraft onto the ground, but he'd taken off already. I thought he was just hovering, you know.
So much for surprises, huh?
Sure.
Okay, so you saw these crazy guys training, and you said, hey, you know, I wish I'd taken that assignment back 100 miles behind the enemy lines in the, at the airport as air traffic